The Slenderman.
Slenderman.
The Slenderman.
Your Slenderman.
Slenderman.
On May 31st, 2014, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, two 12-year-old girls stabbed their friend 19 times. What were the bizarre circumstances around this horrible act committed by two kids? And what does it have to do with the fictional humanoid creature Slenderman? In order to fully understand this story, let's start at the beginning.
Was stabbed 19 times and left for dead by her own friends, who later blamed the fictional character Slenderman.
Morgan handed me the knife, and then I started to count again. When I was 5 feet away, I said, now, go ballistic, go crazy, stab, 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 stab.
Our story really begins in 2009, with a man named Eric Knudsen, aka Victor Surge. In 2009, Surge made a post on the Something Awful internet forum, a place where various pieces of media like blogs, articles, and pictures were all located. Under a thread entitled "Create Paranormal Images," participants would have to Photoshop normal images to make them look paranormal in subtle ways. Surge posted a series of creepy pictures showing a strange figure in the background. The figure was shaped like an abnormally tall, thin man, with long limbs, and in some pictures, even tentacles emerging from his body. In other pictures, it is seen that the creature is wearing a suit. The pictures are quite unsettling, even though they are fictional. But the captions for the pictures are just as creepy. One of them, under a picture of a young boy on a slide looking into the camera, with the Slenderman shadow in the background, the caption reads, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." This was the first taste the internet ever got of what would be known as the Slenderman. From there, the Slenderman mythos exploded. People posted more pictures, stories, illustrations, lore, and eventually a video series on the YouTube channel Marble Hornets, which depicted Slenderman in a found footage style that made the mythical creature's popularity skyrocket. Later on, Slenderman would be adopted into video games, books, and even full-length feature films. According to the mythology of Slenderman, as it has grown and been shaped throughout the years, Slenderman will typically appear in dark, abandoned places, run-down buildings with long, dim hallways, unused and rusting playgrounds, somewhere in the deep woods illuminated only by moonlight. And in 2011, a poster on an internet forum summarized the Slenderman legend in the following paragraph. The Slenderman is a supernatural creature that is described as appearing as a normal human being. But he is described as being 8 feet tall, and he has vectors or extra appendages, that are described to be as sharp as swords. The creature is known to stalk humans and cause many disappearances. He is described as a shadow creature that has a missing face. The creature fits into many mythologies and legends from nations such as Germany and the Celts, which brings up the possibility he could be real. A man named Victor Surge found this legend and made his own version of it, which he called Slenderman. The Slenderman is not exactly evil, though, according to mythology. But Victor Surge's version shows him as an evil creature that stalks humans to kill. In mythology, he was actually trying to save you from a painful death by taking you to the underworld early. In addition to this, Surge's version of Slenderman depicted the creature as particularly apt to go after children. Whether this is because he finds them easier to collect than adults, or if he finds them more appealing to stalk and consume, is unknown. Regardless of what version of the Slender legend you read or choose to believe, it is undeniable that Slenderman was one of the largest internet legends and phenomenon of our modern era. It's a legend that we were able to see form with our own eyes, with the release of each post, fanfiction, picture, story, book, game, and movie. We were literally able to see a creature's whole history and mythos be created in front of our eyes, and it was truly fascinating to watch. But in 2014, things got all too real when the fictional child snatcher known as Slenderman extended a long arm into reality in the form of a vicious crime.
An ABC News exclusive. You're going to meet a young woman with an extraordinary story of survival. She was the victim of a crime that shocked parents everywhere. Stabbed 19 times, allegedly by two of her friends, who said they were trying to impress a fictional internet character called Slenderman. Now, for the first time,
we now arrive at 2014. Our story shifts to Waukesha, Wisconsin, specifically Horning Middle School, the school where three girls attended: Payton Leutner, Anissa Weier, and Morgan Geyser. All three girls, to school staff and the principal, appeared to be good friends and have no disciplinary issues. Principal Mark Wagner says, "They were normal students. They participated in class. They were just your everyday type of students." But with two of these everyday students, something sinister was brewing. Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier discovered the legend of Slenderman while browsing the web, specifically the Creepypasta Wiki, an online resource for scary internet legends, myths, monsters, and stories. A lot of the stories I read on this channel early on came from the Creepypasta Wiki. However, these two girls believed that the fictional tales of Slenderman were true, and they quickly began infatuated with the idea and mythology of Slenderman. It was also around this time that they decided they wanted to be proxies of the creature. They wanted to prove their allegiance to Slenderman and prove his existence to those who were skeptical. The only way to do this, they decided, was via a human sacrifice. Their planning began in February of 2014. The girls started the planning of their human sacrifice in secret, whispering to each other about their plan in shoddy code on the bus or at school. They would often disguise their planning by calling it a camping trip, as they discussed when it would take place and who the victim of choice would be. Eventually, the two girls decided that it would be Payton Leutner, a friend of theirs from school, who they would sacrifice to Slenderman.
There's one of them called Slenderman.
Who's Slenderman?
He's this tall, faceless man who preys on children. at his own will, he can, exploit these tendrils from his back and, strangle his victims. For the creepypasta Wiki said he targets children most.
Anissa explained to me that to prove yourself worthy to Slender, you would have to kill somebody.
They initially planned on committing the act on May 30th, 2014, the day that Morgan Geyser would turn 12. They recall the steps that they went through to prepare. The three girls planned on going roller skating that evening, and then heading back to Geyser's home for a sleepover. At precisely 2 a.m., the two girls would cover Payton's mouth with duct tape to stop her from screaming. They would then stab her in the neck, put a blanket over her, and run. However, when the night finally came, the two girls did not go through with it. As Morgan Geyser later noted, they wanted to give their victim, Payton Leutner, one more day. So they restructured their plan. They now intended on stabbing Payton in the bathroom of a local park. But once again, plans changed. During a game of hide-and-seek, Anissa Weier pushed Payton to the ground and sat on top of her, expecting her cohort to stab her. When Morgan Geyser did nothing, Weier briefly got up. Geyser gave Weier the knife, but she said she was too squeamish to commit the act, so she gave the knife back to Geyser. According to the criminal complaint outlined by Newsweek, Geyser told Weier, "I'm not going to do it until you tell me to." To which Weier said, "Go ballistic. Go crazy." At that, the girls collectively stabbed Payton Leutner 19 times, piercing her liver, pancreas, and stomach, and barely missing an artery near her heart. Weier recounts to police that she remembers Leutner screaming, "I hate you. I trusted you." When the attack had completed, Leutner was still alive. Weier and Geyser told her to stay still, and they would go get help. This, however, was not their intention. They planned on leaving, hoping Leutner would die, and Slenderman would appear to them. But Payton Leutner did not die. She crawled out of the woods and onto a sidewalk where she was found by a bicyclist. When she was taken to the hospital by medical personnel and police, they asked who it was that attacked her. She said, "My best friend." Medical personnel noted that at the time she arrived at the hospital, she was 1 millimeter away from certain death. At the hospital, Leutner confirmed to police that there were 2 assailants, and 4 hours later, Geyser and Weier were found near Interstate 94 with a knife that had a 5-inch blade. Later, when questioned, Weier said, "I believe it's ending a life, and I regret it. The bad part of me wanted her to die. The good part of me wanted her to live." In 2017, Weier pleaded guilty to being party to second-degree homicide and was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Geyser accepted a plea offer in which she would not go to trial and would be evaluated by psychiatrists to determine how long she should be placed in a mental hospital. Later on, however, she ended up pleading guilty and was sentenced to 40 years to life. And in 2018, Geyser was also sentenced to 40 years under mental health facility supervision. This crime has not surprisingly resulted in an intensified debate regarding the effect of the internet on young children. Maybe the internet should be considered by parents as a look into a dark and sinister world. A world that they should be kept away from for as long as possible. Or perhaps those 2 girls would have found something to incite them to violence no matter what. And this situation represents the anomaly, not the normality. No matter where you fall in regards to the analysis of this case on our modern society, there is one thing that everyone can agree on. The legend of Slenderman, the mystical being who hunts children in the woods, might be fake. But the legend of Payton Leutner, the young girl who was betrayed and stabbed by her best friends and crawled out of the woods bloodied and battered, on sheer will to live alone, is very much real.
Some people would say she's doing remarkably well, given what's happened to her.
I would say that is way beyond expectations. I'm astonished at the way that she's been able to recover.
And tonight, we are happy to show you the pictures. Her walk down the driveway to the car. Mom driving her back to school.
She's an amazing child.
She's meant to do something special. She's here for a reason.
I hope you enjoyed this video and this deep dive into the Slenderman stabbing. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Our story begins with 18-year-old Jerry Howell. Jerry Howell was the son of Paul Howell, who was a merchant who worked at a booth at the Westport Flea Market. Jerry and his friends would sometimes make homophobic remarks at a particular man named Robert Bardella, who worked at another booth close by. It wasn't long, though, before Jerry confided in Robert that despite the homophobic comments by him and his friends, they sometimes made money on the side, selling their bodies as male prostitutes. Robert Bardella and Jerry Howell eventually became, in some ways, friendly with each other, although they would still have arguments every now and then. Often, Bardella would offer legal or financial assistance to Jerry if he happened to get on the wrong end of law enforcement. On July 5th, 1984, when Jerry was now 19, Bardella offered to take Jerry to a dancing contest in Merriam, Kansas. Jerry accepted. Little did he know when he accepted that ride, it would be the last one he would ever take. Because the man who was driving him, the man he knew as Robert Bardella, would later be known to authorities and the public as the Kansas City Butcher.